Depression is waking up and longing to return to unconsciousness. That's this type of is, not this type. Many things are many things. I am Rob Middleton, and this is Human is Some. Episode 1. Am is are. I've got a different kind of content warning for you. Yes, I'll be talking about mental health issues, but nothing especially triggering. What may be triggering is the poor quality. I just want to get that out of the way right up front. I have the video making skills of an abstract expressionist painter because I'm an abstract expressionist painter. When I first started making abstract paintings, I was excited to find a method of communicating emotion that was more forgiving, more accommodating than words. Trying to communicate my emotions with words was very frustrating, but not so with paint. This is the first painting I made in a college painting class. This was an assignment with limitations on colors, time, and subject matter. It was the first time I had painted in many years. There's one painting before this one that I consider finished and good enough to hold on to. I could tell I really enjoyed it, but then I put it all aside during high school, and in my free time I did things like learned extra languages and too many sciences, anything I thought might look good on a college application. And I guess that worked because I went to a fancy school, and that's where I painted this, which has been called ugly. And that's fair. Whenever we completed our assigned paintings, we usually talk about them. This being the first class, I didn't know anyone else in this class. Nobody knew me. I don't know her name, but I remember one of the fellow students who commented on mine that she felt something looking at this painting, and she said, I'm not sure I like it. I'm not sure I like the way it makes me feel, but it does make me feel something. Well, I was hooked. And I felt pretty happy with myself because most of the paintings in that first class didn't evoke feelings in anyone, including the people who made them. Most of the paintings looked something like this. Oh yeah, the subject matter was shells, and instead of making this, I made this. Even though they are shells, I do consider this an abstract expressionist painting. I so much needed an outlet for feelings, and this is what has worked for me. If you've ever studied a creative field, oh, damn it. I'm going to try to get through this even though and I have my doors shut. Normally, if the weather's good, I have them open and then the noisiness of the world really gets to me. But that is sort of un-American to have your windows open. At least the way I was raised hermetically sealed. If you're studying in a creative field, there are a couple of expressions that you'll hear. One is not to treat your works too precious. It's a term, you hear it a lot. precious as something that's very negative. I'm assuming the use of this term has nothing to do with Tolkien, but I do think it's funny that the precious and precious is, in both cases, precious is used so negatively. I grew up thinking of precious as a good word. You know, it's something dear, something that you love. Oh, isn't he precious? But it goes too far. Precious isn't cool. The precious is bad. The precious, it burns. Here's an example. This was made in September '05. I've had it in so many shows. Clearly no one wants it. So, so the next expression is, I need to murder my babies. It's another lovely expression to prove that artists are really tough. Don't be precious, murder your babies. So this is a baby that I've had, you know, languishing, if my job is to sell, for 17 years. It's not even a baby anymore, right? The fact that it has so much sheen, I can't even show it to you. And yet at the same time, it's drab and, oh, what's the word everyone hates? Muddy. It really doesn't show well in photos. It really doesn't show well online. I love it. It doesn't take me too. I think because I love it, I'll always keep it. And if someone wants it, they can have it. I mean, they can buy it. But otherwise, it's I'm happy to have it around. Another baby that I might need to murder is this. I have this tendency sometimes to use my canvases as signs and then paint over them later. This temporary sign has been around long enough that this marker has faded, and I hung it here to paint over it to get started on a new painting. I thought this would be a good size because I've sold all the other paintings that I've made this size. And then I couldn't do it. I didn't want to paint it over. It's been so long I cannot remember the order that things happened on this canvas, but I think these things happened before the words. Well, honestly, I don't know. But what I like about it is that I know it was not planned, and yet it is rmiddleton.art, and that's my address. So I think I have convinced myself not to paint over it. It's gonna stick around for a while. And what I'll do instead, I don't know if you can tell, but this is a little rough around the edges. And where it's rough around the edges, I can do, when I feel like concentrating and doing like slow, non-creative work, I can clean that up and then fix where it's faded, and just, you know, that'll give me an easy, busy work assignment to do sometime in the future. And in terms of a fresh start, I'll have to find something else. I've been asked before, I've been asked before to teach abstract painting, and I don't get it, and I have a dumb, jokey answer, and I'll say something like, do you start out wanting to do abstract and accidentally paint, you know, a landscape, a horse, a tree, a person? I don't know. That's because this has become second nature to me. To just make, I mean, it's not, because it's not about, I will endeavor to explain, but anyway, this is one I would be willing to kill unless somebody takes it. I'll flash up a slideshow of the ones I'm holding at ransom. Buy them or they die. Anyway. It's the dreaded double disclaimer. Well, first of all, I'm not going to be doing that slideshow paintings held for ransom. That's what's known as a joke, as is the technical quality of this section. I know I already have warned that this video is full of technical flaws. Well, this section I think is the worst. So bad that I wanted to throw it out and throw my computer out and throw myself out, but I did none of those things. And I'm keeping it in, and not only is it in, it's in the first quarter of the video. Why? Because it flows the way I want it to. So I am sorry. I promise I will get better. So I don't fully understand I don't understand painting anything but abstract because I don't have the patience. Because I don't have the patience for it. But I'll say this much. I can relate to the anxiety of the blank surface, starting on a blank surface. I don't feel much anxiety about it anymore. But when I was starting out, I felt a lot of anxiety because if I don't have something to go on that I'm basing my work on, then what do I do? What's right? What's wrong? What's the first, thing gonna be? So I'll tell you, it's exactly what I say. No. One of the ways that I get started, you'll see a lot of my work has marker in it. This is a pastel, but just, be a kid. Don't put any thought into it. Don't even have to look at it. And I've got markers too. If you use markers, just be aware. Always be aware of your materials. Markers will fade and change colors. So either accept that or know that this is a layer that you will eventually completely cover up. Oh, that's another reason why I sometimes write words. Like, I'm definitely going to cover up the word Smurf because why would I want that in my painting? The thought that was really in my head was Snarfblatt, but I didn't want to wade into that controversy. No, I just didn't. That's even more of a reference to pop culture, Snarfblatt. Well, let's see how the ink is in this green. You know what made me do Smurf? Because it was a blue marker. And it's kind of a Smurfy shade of blue. Well, Smurf. Why am I anti-Smurf all of a sudden? Calm down, Rob. See, even I get worked up. I'll show you another way to get jump started if the blank canvas is what upsets you or intimidates you. I used to go to thrift shops and buy paintings that were really cheap that, evidently the previous people didn't want. And so then I didn't feel bad about painting over them. This is a mass-produced thing that my sister, oops, I hung it upside down, which is funny. My sister didn't want, but I do think it's important, well, it is for me, when I'm working on top of somebody else's work to turn it a different way. It can be considered controversial to paint over someone else's work. But, you know, I mean, I certainly paint over my own work. Also, as I said, this is mass produced. And then anything that you find in the thrift store, what the heck was going to happen to it? So in a case like this, I can use the pre-existing structures to guide my thinking. So I'm just going to go along the path. And then I went towards that pink. But you got to put your abstract brain on. You can't say like, oh, I'm going to paint a house over a house. You have to be willing to obliterate what's there. But, you know, often it'll be easier because it's not your work. It's not your precious. It's someone else's precious. And as I said, this one was free and the person's already been paid multiple times over. So I don't see how anyone, I mean, you know, this is not the worst crime being committed against art, even at this second. At this exact moment, there's definitely something worse happening. So anyway, I don't feel like, I'm not in the mood to paint right now, so bye-bye until later. Just wanted to, I'll probably, but I'll save that for another, I'll save that for later and probably share with you. For now, I just want to cover up Smurf because I'm sick of them. They have been getting away with it for far too long. I am now Team Gargamel. Yeah, so like subsequent strokes can be interacting with the strokes below it. And then as you do it, sometimes, you know, you'll hit upon something that you just really like, how it looks. So you can keep that. But there's where murdering your precious comes into, precious babies, comes into play because you probably have in mind a certain, like you want it to be a certain level of complexity or certain depth. Like this wouldn't be, like, let's just say I loved every stroke. Well, I would still murder it because it's not enough. This isn't enough for me, for what I want. I've only used one style of brush, and I mean, you know, it's just not, I like minimalist works. I sometimes do things where I stop really early on and I think, oh, I'm going to challenge myself and walk away from it now and say, I'm good with it, that's cool. The look is what's important to me. I mean, now that I've changed, oh God, I'm so stupid. I just did a bunch of stuff you couldn't see. Like I love how that looks and it's just absorbed into the fabric. Oil can't, well, I shouldn't say what oil can and can't do because I'm dumb. I am not a fine arts major, but I've had difficulty getting oil to sort of liquefy and soak in to surfaces. But I don't have that difficulty with water-soluble acrylic. Speaking of water-soluble, water on paper. Not the best idea, but this is thick paper, and if I had a different brush, I'd like it better. But but I'm being lazy today. This is the end of my painting session. I'm just cleaning this brush at this point. I'm not being lazy. I'm doing other things. But I was just going to show, I mean, you probably already know this, but acrylic can mimic the look of watercolor easily. I think I've seen people, I mean, people who are great at oil, they can do anything with it. And I've got some, I had an oil painting that I called watercolor because it looked like watercolor. It just doesn't, you'd think I don't paint at all. My mind's on something else. Talking and painting can kill a friendship. Oil requires more than water to thin the oil paint. You need more than water. Whereas this I can wash in my kitchen sink and go down the drain because I've already removed the majority of paint from the brush. It's practically, yeah, it's clean already. Oil, not like that. Oil I love. Oil is beautiful. I have some oil paintings that I've made and that I've made. I think, I don't know, I may have sold all my oil paintings by now. No, I've got some oil paintings because there's some from college that I refuse to part with. Anywho, those are just a few tips on how to get started, and keep coming back, stay tuned, I'll show you more. I'll show you more another time. I've been sort of stumbling and over-explaining, and I think I just realized why. I'm breaking my rules, so it doesn't, this isn't flowing how I'd like. One of my rules is not to be concerned with how I appear, like justifying or explaining myself, and yet I want to do a sort of introductory section, and I've been thinking that, I need to let people know what to expect. So, so there's a conflict there, and I've been up for like 22 hours. I'm not well. I'm just not looking forward to going to sleep because I can't seem to find a position that helps the old tobacco. Man, I'm just allergic to doing anything I don't want to do. So like I say, I'm just going to push through it. Some might think that my ways, my approach is foolish, clearly never going to succeed, or illogical, or maybe just naive, That's a word I always love to embrace. I aspire to be naive in some ways. But again, keep in mind, I have defined my goal in life, my job in life is to feel good. So I need to do things that feel good. That part, I think, needs to go somewhere else. Okay. So, hear me out for a second. So think of a time when there's been a controversy, and it seems like there's a new one every day lately. And whether it's, it's at this moment, I am speaking about either outrageous stunts or offensive statements, bad optics. I'm not talking about deeply criminal and immoral behaviors. Usually, it seems like they're coming from right-wing politics. But sometimes someone's done a dumb thing, or it's been discovered that they did a dumb thing, and either, everyone calls them out or the left calls them out. But I would just say, and then you often get the defense of, it's a joke, just he can't take a joke. And then you might find yourself in a position of wondering, well, is it a joke? Do I take it seriously? How seriously do I take it? Certainly other people can say, might say, do say, it doesn't matter if it's a joke or not. What matters is, who is it hurting people? Who's affected? Results should be what matters. But I say, consider this. No matter the circumstances, no matter the specifics, almost all of the controversies have one thing in common. The behavior was for attention. Whether the foolish or offensive thing is coming from a right-wing politician or just somebody thinking they're funny on Twitter, I think the motive is the same. It's attention. And to me, that's where the problem is. Doing things for attention versus doing things that you care about, that are real, that are important. But doing things for attention is like the world economy now. It's definitely one of the worst side effects, or worse, it's definitely been compounded by the way the internet is now. And, it's how Trump became president. Just doing things for attention. You would think people would learn. Most people don't. Well, most people. I don't know if most people have learned. Our media has not learned, but that's because they exist for attention. So all I'm saying, and again, anytime I sound like pleading or imploring, I am speaking about for me. I'm speaking about what works for me. And maybe it'll work for you too. But if you can flip a switch and give up attention seeking, you're probably not going to make a misstep and write that inappropriate comment that you thought was funny, or thought pushed the envelope. If you ask yourself, what is this? What's the point? What do I get out of it? What do I want to get out of it? Why am I? I'm not suggesting some sort of neurotic censorship. Really what I'm suggesting is not, if you're in the environment, whatever it is, wherever you hang out, Twitter is one of the big ones because the platform is so big. And you think, well, I want a viral tweet, I want to say the thing that gets... If you're primed to seek attention, you are likely to do a boo-boo. To do or say something that you don't fully mean. And I carry that through everything. I carry that through, why do I want to fool with SEO? I don't want to trick people into watching me or buying my art. Again, I know, oh, hopelessly naive, whatever. Okay, my end game is how I feel. My end game is to feel good. Not to do a few things that I don't like that make me feel, not good and kind of like skeevy. Is that a word? For the bigger goal of, you know, being a famous artist or selling art. Only thing that matters is feeling good. The more I'm able to do that every day, that's success. Success is being the most me. I dropped out of college. I didn't get my psych. I didn't get my psych degree, but the ego integrity is what popped into my head. I had to include that part about not finishing college because I don't know where my ideas come from, and I know I cannot pass myself off as an expert on anything other than the life I have lived. But lo and behold, ego integrity is a concept that is very much in line with what I'm talking about. Ego integrity, the eighth stage in Erikson's developmental theory, the opposite of despair. It is the major psychic task of the mature elderly. I guess I'm officially elderly because this is where my head is at, and is marked by a healthy unifying philosophy and the wisdom learned from experience. The individual feels vital, balanced, and whole in relation to the self and the world. I'm definitely an elderly for YouTube, but by Erikson's theories, I am in middle adulthood, and he would expect my greatest concerns to be over my spouse and my children and my contributions to society. As someone who does not have a spouse nor children, and who thinks society is, anyway, I think it makes sense to me that if there's any truth to any of this stuff, I would be somewhere between the middle age and the elderly stage in my life, how I live. The antithesis of ego integrity is despair, and that's a fight, an existential fight I've been fighting my whole life. So I learned and retained something in college after all, I guess, maybe. Let's move on. Only thing that matters is feeling good. Just being fully myself and knowing the boundaries of what I am and what I'm not, and integrity in it just feels good. So the funny, the thing is, I still get super down on a regular basis, and when I get super down, I will kind of like just withdraw and hardly speak to anybody. And that's an issue, but this me is about to talk for 20 minutes on the subject of my own experiences with mental health diagnoses and treatment, and that is worthwhile. I will edit it and use it at some point. But since I just mentioned my tendency to withdraw, and through the magic of buying two of me, we're about to switch to this version of me. But just before we leave this room, let's go back and button up the topic of how my creative philosophy differs from the norm and how that affects what you'll see on this channel. Whatever. Attention seeking is a flawed reason to do anything, and it is currently the number one reason that anything is done. Where have I been? Well, mostly there. This was during a time when I didn't even put the fitted sheet on, but was sleeping in just some sort of loose wrap. Yeah, so in a way, my envisioned audience for these videos would be anyone who's ever, I don't know, washed a dish in the shower or not unpacked a bunch of boxes or suitcases for months, if not years. Basically, if you've ever felt completely unacceptable, then we can relate to each other. And you're not really supposed to have people over when your house looks like this, right? From my first steps onto the internet, I've been intrigued by the immediacy and the ability for like the little guy to express unfiltered thoughts and feelings. This is also an expression of feelings. I would say in my visual art and in my verbal expressions, I'm torn. I want there to be a place for the expression of angst, the expression of uncertainty,
the difficulty is simply getting to grips with his languid, languishing, slow, unrolling, relative clause stuffed style. He's doing some very challenging but rewarding things with time, and he's aiming to expand your consciousness, and you must slow down when you read Proust.
Yes, that's BOOKTUBER Benjamin McEvoy talking about Proust. I'll be sure to link his video. Do I think I'm Proust? No, but do I look to art of the past for inspiration? Yes, especially when most of what is being offered for inspiration these days is...
Where I'll show you how to start getting more views.
By including him here, this is not a condemnation of the maker of the video, who I'm sure is a lovely person, simply saying that there's enough of this. Is there room for... I want there to be dignity in mess. But everything's measured by, views, likes, ultimately dollars. To stubbornly strive to be unpopular is a guarantee of failure. Why do I think this is important? Because from the very beginning, my audience has always been me or younger me. The audience that I would want would be people who feel like crap, who live in a dirty house, who feel trapped in their work, who... Why do I want to reach out to people who feel despair? Because it hurts, and it's isolating. And those are the people who are alone. And there's solidarity in sharing common experiences. Aren't there enough? Don't we get enough successful, wealthy, popular? Don't we get enough exposure to those things? But I don't know. I have no idea how to crack the code of communicating when not at my best. When I'm doing better, I communicate a different way, and it's more successful. But I feel that if we're going to make it, we have to be open to those who are struggling. And I know that we all struggle at different times. So I'm in a lot of pain as I'm speaking. So it's a wrap. There's so many disheartening things happening in the world. In many ways, the time that we spend online seems to contribute to our problems. So it's nice to see at the same time that at least in my feeds, there's so many people sharing words of encouragement, simple emotional expressions. It's part of the motivation for me doing this is that I know people are into it. Maybe not exactly the way I'm going to be doing it, but I think people are hungry for content that addresses emotional needs and offers support. And you see it happening where people are supporting each other just spontaneously in little ways online, and that's great, you know, that's nice to see. So I want to talk about a word that I see popping up a lot in encouraging talk, because every time I see it, I kind of have a negative reaction to it and can't absorb the well-intentioned advice. And so I thought I'd look into why. The word is deserve. And people will say things, well, I'll throw some stuff, I'll do a search and find some stuff and just put it up. People use this word in terms of motivation, self-esteem, ego boosts. By the way, this kid is now 16. I am told that I deserve good things to happen. I deserve love. I deserve success, whatever it is. The fact that I don't want to internalize this concept that there's something within me that resists that, well, some people would say, there's your problem. That's why you're not, you're not feeling confident enough. You're not feeling like you deserve good things, so you're not getting good things. Attitude is important, but I don't think that's totally accurate. You can't just, wish for good things to take place. But I only wanted to bring that up to just leave it out there. That could be the explanation, I don't like the word because I'm not there yet. I haven't grown to the right level. Some might see that, think that, that's fine. I look at it differently. I really love language. I think all human beings do. I'm not saying that I'm so special. It's probably humanity's greatest achievement. Now, where I may be different is that I think of words as entities, beings. I think that a word has a life. I would not go so far as to say that they are sentient, but I simply mean I'm so fortunate to live here. I was just distracted by an eagle and some dragonflies. In the same way that an eagle cannot not be an eagle cannot be a dragonfly, deserve can only be the word deserve. Now, I do think it's important to keep track of how the language changes and to be aware of usage and how a word will be interpreted by your audience. All of that is important, and new slang can be fun. And also, sometimes you can use the wrong word, but your meaning is still understood. Think of like malapropisms, or, if I'm not educated on a certain topic, I can easily use the wrong word, but hopefully the audience will be forgiving. I think the reason that I am putting so much emphasis on this word is that it's being used for psychological motivation. It's being used to sort of encourage my soul. And for those kinds of words, I take them very seriously. And basically, the words I'm going to incorporate into my self-talk, if they're going to accomplish emotional healing, I want to be very particular and specific about the words I use. And for me, this one doesn't work for me. So one reason it doesn't work is that it sounds entitled, so it seems unrealistic to me to walk around this earth thinking I deserve things. I can't absorb that. I just can't. Somehow I just can't feel it and mean it. So for me, whenever I have an issue with a word, I like to look it up and pay attention to the etymology. Etymology is like the provenance of words, provenance or provenance of art is the story of provenance of a piece of art is knowing everything that happened to it when it left the hands of the creator to today. If you know the provenance, you know how it was cared for and that it's the original. Words are passed down to us through generations like art, and I like to take the provenance, the history, the etymology of a word, because I want to know what that word is bringing with it. So it probably won't surprise you that this word comes from words meaning servant and slave. Even though it has the D there, that D is meaning from or of. There's no version of this word that I have found that doesn't have to do. There's no version of serve that I've found that isn't about doing something for another and the relationship seems unequal. The very earliest I was able to find started with it coming from watching over. So being attended to. All of that energy I don't like. I don't think people need to attend to me. I just don't get it. It's not going to be the path for me to being my best self. It's just not. Let's go on a love language tangent for a second. If anyone buys into that, one of them is acts of service. If that's what you are into, that can be really beautiful and great. I was in a relationship where that was my partner's love language, probably, one of the most important ones. When you're in a relationship and someone is performing, acts of service or showing their love in that way, there is it's an unequal exchange going on if it's not also your priority. Because when you are receiving someone else's acts of service, someone else sharing love through acts of service, if it's not your thing, you may not even be aware of it. You're definitely not as aware as they are. There are things that you're missing. You can come to take it for granted because it's always happening. And even sometimes there are things that you do not want that someone else is doing for you, supposedly, and it's not something you would have ever asked for or it may even cause problems, either because it's not a thing that you want, or the problem may be simply that it's not reciprocal. And that's service. My love languages, by the way, are quality time, no surprise there, and physical touch, if those are even two of them. I don't know. I don't subscribe to anything. I think the whole love languages thing is an interesting concept. It's an interesting conversational prompt between two partners, or any two people. Since I don't like serve, deserve, what do I like? I'll tell you. I like the word worth. So if I'm ever giving myself a pep talk, I'm much more likely to think I'm worth something, I'm worthy. Activities I look at in terms of them being worthwhile. Worth. I just got a whiff of the marker. When I looked into the word worth, going back through its history, it is associated with value, and its origins come from words pertaining to exchange, to transactions, to exchange, to trade. So I like that a lot. Anything that is worthwhile, you are trading time for a thing. All fair exchanges should be even. It's one of the big problems I have with our work culture today. But unlike deserve, where there's a bestowing on, a giving, a sacrifice of one to another, worth is equal. Worth is an exchange. Worth is a trade. So for me to feel worthy and worthwhile includes in it that I believe others are worthy. In my private moments, if I think of things that I want, I think that I'm worth it, I'm worthy of good things happening, versus I deserve good things to happen. Because as I say, I do think all people are worthy of good things in life. I'll be looking at words in this way as a recurring segment, and I will call it Words Worth. I will always have a time index in my videos so you can see all the segments at the bottom, skip around, skip the ones you don't like, tune into the ones you do like. I may end up uploading some of the segments as separate videos just to have more content, and for people who would rather see something that's only a couple minutes versus however long this whole thing ends up being. This time of year, I keep my home open as much as possible, and that means noises from outside will always be intruding. I'm willing to impair the quality of my product in favor of the quality of my life. In that last section, the entire time, even though I'm keeping it, I just want you to know I'm aware. I set it up intending to be on that side, facing this way, because this is with the light on my face, and I did the entire video this way with my face half lit. So like, I'm not a complete, like, I know, but I goof up a lot. Coming off of a segment on words, I thought it's a fitting time to discuss pronouns. My pronouns are he and him. I'm fine with they. If you don't understand why there is an entire culture built around pronouns, it is because we, those of us who identify our pronouns, believe in addressing people as they would like to be addressed. It's as simple as that. But while I'm talking about pronouns, I would like to talk about on this channel how I probably will be using I, you, we, and they. The idea is for me to be producing I and me centered content because I only know me. I cannot speak to others or give advice as to what others should do. My hope is that others might relate to my experiences, especially as open as I am to sharing. It's another big bird again. I wish I had a camera good enough to catch it. Ooh, it's going into the water. You're missing out on everything. It's fishing. I also probably should say I have seen hawks and eagles from up here, and usually the only way I'm certain that I'm seeing an eagle is when it's a bald eagle, which and I do see bald eagles from here sometimes, and then beyond that, I probably don't know the difference. Is this shirt inside out? It surely is. Different day, same fashion. Lack of fashion. Eventually, I'm sure I'll get around to talking about centering and self-centered and how I see that is very different from selfishness. My concept of being self-centered is simply reflecting the reality that I only know myself fully. But just like anyone else, sometimes I will say, you, blah, 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 we, blah, 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 they, blah, 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 blah. If I ever say you, I probably mean one. We don't use that very much in English, but a person might is, a good interpretation of what I mean. What I'm trying to say is I'm not so disciplined to always say exactly what I mean, and I fall into a lot of language habits just like anybody else. But regardless of how I phrase it, I'm never telling you what to do. I'm never telling you what you are or what you think. If I ever say we, it is simply a hopeful, let us improve our world, please. And whenever I say they, I actually have a philosophy that they means we. Because when we use they, we're usually designating a group as apart from us and them. And because I believe the best way to be is as one human community, then we are truly one we. Okay, that's what I mean by that. That there is really no they, apart from specific uses in a very specific situation. But in general, to retrain my head away from us and them thinking, I tend to see us as they. So to recap, they are we, which is you and me. I am is our buzzword, be being then. I have a real issue with all of the talk, all the advice that is phrased that addresses you, just like the generic you. Even when it's good advice, I just heard a clip and I was like, oh, that sounds good. But it was the guy saying, you'll never be good enough for the wrong person. I'm just so much more comfortable when I do the extra work to phrase all of my observations as about me, which of course I imagine may sound not very engaging, But the truth is, I can't ever tell you what will work for you, what won't work for you. I can speak to my experiences, and I can try. I think I try very hard to make that accessible and even universal without the expectation that it's universal. I'll put it out there. It's like reading. When we read stuff and we think, oh, I relate to this. I don't relate to that. I feel like that is a better way for me to present all of the dialogues that I want to present versus, hey, you know what you need to do? Oh, I'm turning red because I'm semi-inverted as I'm doing this. I'm on the floor. I have taken a bedspread and put it on the floor of my bedroom as a permanently available, roomy, inviting yoga space. I think it's a good thing. Yes, my bedroom that you saw earlier is now no longer quite as cluttered, but I am not someone who believes that neat is moral and messy is immoral. We each decide what's best for us. The reason I had boxes and packing material is that it was my shipping center. Here's a rolled up canvas of a painting in progress. It's not something everyone else has to store. It goes under my bed. That's the best place for it. That sounded defensive. I don't like being defensive, and yet I know at several times in this video I have. I think it's because the vast majority of messages that I pick up from society are offensive. I will never keep a home in a way that's the envy of others, suitable for publication or broadcast. Similarly, my body, if I lived according to lessons learned from my society, I would not be putting this large person in tight shorts on a video on the internet. But I know the healthiest thing for me to do is to defy messaging that I've absorbed that isn't helpful. And when it comes to my career, oh, I'm sorry, that sound means time is up. I know you were set to talk about your art career and the economy. That will have to wait for another time. We are preparing for bed because I often need a boost of inspiration to help get me out of bed in the morning. I have put up photos that I can see from my bed of figures that inspire me in various ways. I have them blurred out so I won't be tempted to even talk about them right now. Thanks for joining me. This concludes my broadcast day.
On the next episode of Humanism.
More of the same shit.
Interspersed with poetry, cooking, more painting techniques, interviews, nature walks, and more. And more.
I had a weird day.
And more.
It's been gray and damp for 2 days. After I finished my midday meal, I went to bed. Went back to bed. But it's okay. This project is helping me put into words thoughts that I've had for years and seeing how they all come together. I'm seeing the links between my art and my beliefs so strongly. And so one of them is I am just adamantly opposed to telling another person what to do. I am about freedom. And that leads to everything else. Seeing how everything goes together is such a gift, such a privilege. I don't like control. I don't like people being told what to do. And so it's why I don't like religion. It's why I like art that is completely individualistic, relative. It's why I don't like advertising. It's why I don't like exhortations, self-help that's written in the terms of you need, want, should, are. I bristle at all of that. And it's all the same bristle. It's all the same prickliness. So, I don't know. I guess I always knew it, but I don't think I ever articulated it or saw all of the links. My next video is going to be about consent. I should have said upcoming, not next. I can work in any order, but I definitely have a video on consent upcoming. And more. I'm waiting on soup. Meld is a great word. Is it? I don't know. We'll see.